Miguel Castros jail in Peru. This case is about the Peruvian National Police and Peruvian military's deliberate and unprovoked attack on the Miguel Castro prison. In the course of this attack, several members of Sendero Luminoso and Tupac Amaru were detained, dozens of inmates were killed, and hundreds of inmates were injured. In May 1992, the attack, known as Operation Removal 1, was carried out with the supposed objective of moving the internees from the prison to a maximum security prison for women in Chorrillos. However, the real objective of the attack was in fact to kill the women detained in Block 1A. The police and special units of the Peruvian Army bombed a maximum security prison facility holding 135 women suspected by the Fujimori government of being terrorists. Approximately 135 female prison inmates, along with about 450 male inmates, were subjected to violent attacks by guards and other state agents over the course of 3 days at the Castro Maximum Security Prison. During the operation, Block 4B, which held male detainees, was also bombarded to prevent the women fleeing to this block. In the end, 41 persons were killed and 185 injured. The surviving female inmates were subsequently subjected to various forms of torture, humiliated, stripped down, and subjected to further physical and psychological abuse. On May 6, 1992, under the pretext of transferring women prisoners to another maximum security prison, at 4 a.m., National Police officers blew up part of the external wall of Pavilion 1A's yard. Police officers simultaneously swarmed the rooftops on Pavilion 1A, creating holes in the roof to allow for rifle access. Army soldiers and police officers bombed the pavilion, and snipers shot from rooftops and from nearby prisoners' pavilions. By 9:30 a.m., the police began firing white phosphorus gas and tear gas bombs, asphyxiating prisoners and burning their eyes, lungs, and skin. The prisoners were forced to use clothes soaked in their own urine to filter the air they breathed. At 10 a.m., male inmates in Pavilion 4B began to protest the attack on their fellow prisoners in 1A. In response, the police fired at the male prisoners. These prisoners were taken to the Santa Monica of Chorrillos prison. At 1 p.m., the Interior Secretary and National Police Force Director reportedly arrived at the scene to supervise the operation. The attack on Pavilion 4B continued through the day. At the end of the day, President Fujimori reportedly met his cabinet and police and army authorities at General Army headquarters to evaluate the ongoing operation at Castro prison. May 9, 1992. At 6 a.m., the state forces resumed the attack, blasting Pavilion 4B with grenade, gunfire, and other explosives. Finally, by 6 p.m., the prisoners agreed to come out. As unarmed prisoners exit the pavilion, state officers shot them down indiscriminately, killing many. Other prisoners taken into custody were separated by sex. Some of these were separated again and killed by state agents. During the entire operation over the 4 days, 1 police officer died. 9 others were injured. One of the latest updates on the case are from March the 31st on 2014. In a follow-up hearing, the court determined the state failed to comply with a required measure. The court found that although the opening and the joiner of 2 criminal investigations positively affected the investigation of the case, the state failed its duty to investigate within a reasonable time, as more than 20 years has passed since the events occurred. Additionally, the court found that the state was not investigating violations constituting torture and violence against women, and that the state did not properly characterize several victims as aggrieved. Also, as the state was required to provide updated and detailed information on progress regarding the joinder of the two criminal proceedings, referencing the criteria set forth by the judgment. In compliance with its obligation to guarantee security and maintain public order, especially within prison facilities, the state does not have unlimited state power. The limits of its action are marked by respect for the standards of protection of human rights. Above all, it must guarantee that its security forces act respecting the right to life of the people entrusted to them. The state of Peru, during and after Operation Moving One, violated the right to life, the right to humane treatment, and the rights to judicial warranties and judicial protection of persons detained in the Castro prison and from their relatives. In doing this, it also failed to fulfill its obligation to sanction and prevent torture and to sanction and prevent violence against women. Both obligations contained in the Inter-American Convention to Prevent and Punish Torture and the Inter-American Convention to Prevent, Punish, and Eradicate Violence Against Women. The court found Peru to have violated Article 4 of the American Convention on Human Rights. The court ordered Peru to investigate and punish those responsible for these violations, to return the bodies of any inmates killed to their next of kin, to publicly acknowledge and apologize for these violations, to provide, at no cost, medical and psychological treatment to the victimized inmates and next of kin, and to pay reparations to the victims or their next of kin. In order to get to a conclusion, the court considered the occurrence of the following events. A. The operation was not notified to prison authorities. B. Moving 1 is activated when members of the security forces enter Pavilion 1 through 3 successive detonations. They made holes in the ceiling to start firing. C. The use of force was the only means to use control order in the prison. Any other alternative means, prior to using any type of violence, which is the last mechanism for a resolution of a disturbance of order, was not used. This was confirmed by the state expressed rejection of the intervention of the International Red Cross, the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, the Episcopal Commission for Social Action, and the National Coordinator of Human Rights, which were representatives of the doctors in the conflict. Letter D. Weapons of the war or of a military incursion are used. The forensic experts consulted by the court noted the use of high-speed weapons that produced further tissue destruction and many internal injuries to the bodies of the victims. Forensic expertise indicates that the type of injuries sustained confirms that the firearm discharges were directly directed at them. Most of the deceased inmates in Zone 3 and 12 gunshot wounds in the head and thorax areas. Some more facts that the court confirmed are: on the last day of Moving 1, state agents shot at inmates who they left Hall 4B, having asked not to be shot at.
Similarly, some inmates were under control and the authorities were separated from the group and executed extrajudicially. Letter F. On two occasions during the operation, Alberto Fujimori, who was the current president of Peru at that time, met in the general command of the army with the Council of Ministers and police and military authorities to assess the situation in the prison and determine the actions to be taken. But actually, on May 10 of 1992, Fujimori settled in the prison facility and walked among the prisoners lying face down on the floor of the prison's courtyards. Letter G. The wounded were not taken care of opportunely. To end this presentation properly, we want to share with you the importance of this case. This case matters because the decisions of the Inter-American Court of Human Rights are binding on the states parties to the American Convention of Human Rights that have accepted the jurisdiction of the court. In this decision, the court examined the violations of convention rights for the first time in conjunction with the Convention Belém do Pará and the Inter-American Convention to Prevent and Punish Torture. This is an important step in ensuring a holistic protection of the human rights of women within the inter-American system, given that the competence of the court to ensure compliance with the Belém do Pará Convention is not expressly provided for. Following this decision, obligation on states to comply with the convention is no longer in doubt. The decision is an important international precedent in its examination of the differential impact on violence and torture perpetrated against women and men, and in its evaluation of the particular seriousness of the acts of torture, including sexual violence, which are used to humiliate women. The court carried out this analysis not only because the principal victims in the case were women, but also because the violence was directed at the women based on the specificity of their sex and gender. The focus of these effects of torture on pregnant women is also important, given the lack of attention that this has been given in the past, despite the fact that crimes against humanity have often been perpetrated against pregnant women. The special protection of pregnant women is one of the oldest in international humanitarian law and international law more generally.